Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the Super Mario Brothers movie. I think the Super Mario Brothers movie is almost sort of nothing to talk about because it's sort of the movie equivalent of Air, and I don't think that's a bad thing for what it's doing and attempting to do, and artistic intent and corporate intent and all those things. I think it is plainly, it's sort of distinctly as it is the Super Mario Brothers movie. It's just perfect at being that. I get why people are sort of underwhelmed by the prospect of that, but I don't see this going any other way because, video games being adapted into movies isn't necessarily a new thing, but it getting this kind of like huge treatment from a major animation studio in this way, probably the biggest name in video games working on this level, is fairly unprecedented, even if Sonic, did it with 2 movies. But I don't think anyone thought a big brand like Mario would ever come to pass. And it has, and we're here, and it just feels like, oh, you did it, and that's it. That's what it is. It's kind of what I think of when I think of a lot of stuff with kids, is it's kind of the rule, as I call it, where it's like the idea of things like the sky is blue, books like Hungry Caterpillar or The Cat in the Hat, or things where it's like it might not seem very interesting to grown-ups. A lot of that stuff, it might seem very like kind of boring. You're like, yeah, this just tells you, a very boring, like everybody knows kind of fact. But people sort of have to discover those rules and then move on and develop and so forth. And I'm not saying Super Mario Brothers, the movie, is essential to childhood development or something, but it's sort of made in that specific, like, person goes to save someone from big bad and stuff happens. Like, I don't understand when people are like, I don't want to spoil it. And I'm like, spoil what? There's, what this movie is. Like, if you couldn't have guessed how this is going to go. I mean, there's certain, like, cameos and things like that. But the basic plots, if you just think for 2 seconds, you can, like, literally think of the entire movie. The only thing I guess that's different is Luigi gets kidnapped by Bowser and not Princess Peach, but like, I don't, even in that, you sort of get what this is. It's very predictable to the point where I think later while I was watching the film, I literally thought, did I miss a part, or am I remembering the cliche of what this is? Is that just what this movie is? Like, I wasn't even sure. But like, I took my daughter to see this movie. She had an amazing time. She was screaming, I love Mario, as we left the movie. And it was a packed theater. And the audiences was everyone from people who were in walkers to little babies younger than her. And I think a general all-audience movie is never really a bad thing. It's something the film business especially needs right now. It's beautiful seeing an entire like multi-generational group watch the same movie and laugh at the same jokes and enjoy the same things. That's one of the reasons I like the movies. I love that kind of communal experience where like these 20 people who would never speak to each other or look at each other in any other circumstance are having this communal experience. I think that's sort of beautiful, especially about the theatrical experience. That's something I like, seeing movies with like different kinds of people, because I like the different reactions. And I got that with this. And I think it's honestly really good at being a general audience movie. Like, I'm a little surprised they didn't just rate this G, maybe because people are so weird about a G rating and I thought they'd make more with PG. That's what everyone theorizes, but there's like enough jumping and violency things that I'm sure it's like was going to get PG anyway. But you can be a nothing burger of a movie. Kind of like, somebody saves the princess. This happens. Bowser does the thing you expect him to. Blah, blah, blah. And still be, I think, good at being that. And I think the Super Mario Brothers movie is good at being a Super Mario Brothers movie made by Illumination. Now, that sounds like not artistically the greatest thing ever, and I do think that's why film critics are kind of not as into this as much, because under most of the time when they review certain things like that, this is not an exciting movie. And I think it is exciting for what is doing with video games, what is doing with this specific IP, the fact that we got this Mario movie. But as a film itself, like, yeah, no, it's not exciting, but taking all the context away from this would I don't know what that is. It's, you have to bring that into it. And I think that's why you have multi-generations going to this movie, because it is a Mario movie. It's like what we used to have with the first Spider-Man or the first Batman or things like that. People are like, oh my God, they made it into a movie. And as much as like that idea has gone really away from comic book movies at this point, because there's like too many, with video game movies, and especially with this one, it was this thing people wanted their whole lives, is for there to be a Super Mario movie. And, parents want to take their kids, parents want to take their grandparents and their kids, and kids of all different ages who would not see this thing. And they're having a good time, and that's wonderful. Now, one thing that I did find was interesting is this kind of those age groups dealing with each other, because we did have a lot of people who were like in their 20s and 30s who were just coming, with their friends or something. I think there was one part where Luigi gets scared by a bunch of guys behind him, and a lot of the people who were in their 20s were laughing. This kid just stood up and yelled like, "Why are you laughing?" Like didn't understand it. And like, that's funny. That's this movie, is like, you have all these generations like gleefully, they're laughing at one thing, kids are laughing at another thing, everybody's having a good time. Illumination is not a great studio. They have never really been, and this may be one of their best movies. I think I would think of what a better one is, but I don't care, frankly. And I tried to think of one, and I was like, I guess like Despicable Me 2 maybe, or The First Secret Life. I mean, it was sort of like one of those things where I went, it's one of the better ones. I could never rank them because I don't have a strong enough opinion about them being good. So, it's better than Hop, if that means anything to anyone. This is about your typical thing. Mario goes to the Mushroom Kingdom. He gets separated from Luigi. Luigi gets taken by Bowser. Mario meets Princess Peach. Mario and Peach then actually go to meet Donkey Kong to get the Donkey Kong Kingdom country, whatever, Donkey Kong country, let's say, to go on her side to fight Bowser. And then they do, and how it goes. They drive in cars because of Mario Kart, all that. The Donkey Kong stuff with him was actually one of the more interesting things, where they like don't like each other a lot. I thought that was actually probably one of the one plot point I didn't know going in, that wasn't in a trailer or something, I thought was cool. Most of the voice acting was just sort of there, other than Jack Black. Jack Black was great. Jack Black is great in kids films. Like he is like Oscar level worthy in like the first Jumanji. I never saw the second one. And in this, and in School of Rock, like seriously, like one of the great actors of family entertainment, 100%, because he really gets like how wonderful it is to ham it up, because everyone was laughing during the Peach song. Like I do think, by the way, that is like some real cinematic or entertainment or art power, to spread a message and have like people who have nothing in common, you never see them in a theater together laughing at a joke. That's pretty awe-inspiring. And the fact that like this guy who was in like this cult rock band 20 years ago is now making people laugh in a piano ditty is pretty amazing. I do think they should play that at the Oscars. By the way, it is eligible. I read on Twitter, so I guess it's right. It's very plain in a sense. It's not in conversation with literally anything other than it wants you to like Mario. I think I saw in Saber's review, he compared this to Force Awakens, and I agree with him in that sense, because Force Awakens was like, hey, general public, what if you like Star Wars a lot again? And this is sort of like, hey, general public, you like Mario, what if you still did? And they do. Cool. I just think this is not a thing that is an interesting film analytically. I think what you're going into it is because of Mario and because of that IP and going through the references and things like that. This is not done by an interesting studio directors of this who created Teen Titans Go. I actually think Teen Titans Go, man, remember when you used to hate that thing? I think is probably a lot more fun than this is, but it gets what it needs to get about it. I think maybe that I would have higher expectations for a sequel. They can't pull this shit again, but at the same point, it's like, well, this was the first one and you did it successfully, but you did it in like sort of the blandly surface, like, this is the Mario movie, here you go kind of thing, and I had a good time with it, but I will admit, like, there were serious points where it was like, oh, okay, we're doing this, we're doing that. I liked that it was in Brooklyn, and I'm in Brooklyn, and I like that I got to take my daughter and we had a really good time. And I think like if you're going, I've heard people taking large groups of people and like having like the fun of seeing a movie together. And I can't hate that for this movie. I think that's actually really awesome. I think that is something we really still need. Like, as much as people are like, oh, COVID's over, we had Top Gun and Spider-Man No Way Home and Avatar and all that stuff. But like, I think this is a big nexus moment, and we shouldn't underappreciate the release of this and what it represents to people. And you can talk about, oh, it wasn't that good, but I think it is good at being just the rule of what a Mario movie should be. Now we have that laid bare. We don't have to have the weird Japanese one or the 1993 one, which now people like a lot now. And yeah, in terms of direction and its futurist Blade Runner thing, which honestly isn't that interesting for the time period, but because most of you, I guess, didn't see a bunch of those movies, it is now. I just think it's like they set the bar. That's totally understandable, and they did it in a fine, perfect way. It's just like nothing to really get that excited about as a story, I guess. It's just like, is the Mario story, but in a sense, like, that is what people are excited to see on the big screen. So I think you kind of can't review this film in a sense of like, yeah, it is like kind of boring to think, well, the sky is blue. But in some cases, it's really cool to see a blue sky. And if you worked really hard one day, it's like the end of Sullivan's Travels. Like, if you worked really hard and at the end of the day, you get to watch a Mario movie, that's kind of nice. And I think you should look at it that way. I know that might be a weak way to review this film, but I think that's like, there's no other real context to understand this movie. I think if you're just going to do it and go, oh, it's so cliche, this is the Mario movie. But like, first off, it's movie-wise, it's not, because nobody's done it. So there's that. But it does, yeah, it is the plot we've seen a million times of someone saving someone and like fighting this villain and all that stuff. But like, what do you want this to be? It's Illumination's Mario movie. It does that perfectly well. I think they understood the weight of this and did a very digestible way to do this, and they were very good at it in a very just like, that was it. And that we all came together and we saw this. It was generally enjoyable. So I think in a general enjoyable way, the Super Mario Brothers movie was a success, but I don't know if I'd think about it more than the good times we had seeing it. I won't think about the movie I actually saw. So if you've seen the Super Mario Brothers movie and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.